Oh, my nameplate was apparently missing, and I have one in my drawer from a different committee that I'm on. We sit down here, so I just moved it.
We're starting.
I'm not.
Forget about that. Good evening, everyone. Can we call the meeting to order?
Do a roll call.
It is on. Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, can we call the meeting to order? It is approximately 5:31 p.m., January 28th, 2019, City Council meeting for the City of Moorhead. Madam Clerk, will you please make a roll call?
Shelley Dahlquist. Here. Sarah Watson-Curry.
Here.
Shelley Carlson. Here. Heidi Durand. Joel Paulson.
Here.
Deb White.
Here.
Steve Gertz.
Here.
Chuck Henriksen.
Here.
Mayor Judd.
Here. May we please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, everyone. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm not sure. There's been some question about one of the items, and I want to make sure nobody wanted to pull it off the consent agenda for tonight, the CDBG number 19. So I just wanted to make sure that we gave everybody the opportunity if you want to pull it off consent before the consent. And it doesn't look like anybody wants to, so that's it.
Any other amendments by the council? Seeing none. We'll move on to number 5, recognitions and presentations. Oh,
Go ahead.
excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, we'll need a motion, second, and a vote on the consent
On the
agenda.
consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry. So, motion to approve the consent agenda made by Council Member White, seconded by Council Member Paulson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Now we'll move on to number 5, recognitions and presentations. We begin with a presentation of the MAP Bus Transit Facility Study by Mr. Wade Klein.
Mayor and Council, I'd like to introduce Wade Klein from KLJ. He'll be making the presentation tonight. The study was done through the Metropolitan Council of Governments, our planning organization, to address some short and long-term facility needs for MAP Bus. So I will let him give you a presentation.
Thanks, Lori. Mr. Mayor, members of council, in your packet was an executive summary for the MAP Bus Transit Facility Study. So we've got a PowerPoint here. The primary reason behind the study was really to address some long-range transit facility needs that were identified by MapBus. And so we looked at all the significant facilities, number of them, of course, shared between the City of Fargo and the City of Moorhead. Ground Transportation Center, one of them, Metro Transit Garage, another one of them, but also looked at some needs specifically on the Fargo side at West Acres, and also looked at some stop level, route level facility improvements. So really, the intent of the study is to help identify some longer range capital investment and programming needs for MapBus and the City of Moorhead. We looked at some growth projections when we were looking at facility needs. We looked at a 20-year planning horizon. That's what MetroCog, who ultimately led this study, asked us to do to make sure we understood not only from a capital rolling stock number of vehicles. We also looked at staffing. Of course, the organization is pretty robust when you take into account not only municipal staff but contract operators as well. So we looked both at rolling stock, and we looked also at staffing levels to make sure we understood, what will MapBus have in terms of both vehicles and people, because with the Metro Transit garage, I mean, it's only 10 or 12 years old and it's already near capacity, so we wanted to make sure that with this effort that we were taking a big picture perspective. We took a close look, at stop level boarding and route analysis to make sure we understood that, from the customer-facing elements of transit facilities in terms of where people are getting on the bus, do we have enough infrastructure out there to meet those needs? Over 2 million people a year use the Metro bus system, so we wanted to make sure that there was, adequate facilities. So we looked at where people were using the bus system. We identified some transit-intensive corridors. What does that mean for Moorhead? Corridors like A Street, 12th Avenue, your central corridors downtown, to make sure that, as those areas continue to evolve, that we have adequate bus infrastructure in place. And so based on boarding dynamics, we developed a tiering system to look at what kinds of transit facilities, customer-facing transit facilities, would be appropriate based on the level of usage. And I'm not going to obviously walk through each of those, but it provides a nice framework for MapBus to make some decisions. And we tried to provide a graphical element to this. We want public transit to be something that's perceived as friendly, as safe. It is currently friendly and safe, but we want to make sure that there is that image. So we looked at A-level stops, and those are more significant boarding parts on the overall transit system. Right now there's currently only 2 A-level stops on the system. That would be the West Acres facility and the ground transportation facility. We also looked at B-level stops. In Moorhead's case, that would be places like the Marriott, Walmart, and Dilworth. Some still pretty significant boardings. You have a number of routes transferring there. We also looked at a couple possible opportunities for B-level stops. One opportunity on the south side was at M State. We developed some layouts for if in the future there were to be a transfer of that current site that's been at the Marriott for a number of years, co-locating it at the M State campus. We did develop some options there. We developed some renderings for what that may look like when you put it in context to that particular site. We did the same thing at the Dilworth Walmart. We looked at, right now the current area where the buses transfer on the north end of the Walmart isn't exactly the most friendly location, so we looked at a couple different options there. We met with Walmart. They were very comfortable with the options that we laid out. These would be kind of some visualizations of what that side of the building would look like once we made those investments there. We developed some planning level cost estimates for both the Walmart and the Dilworth facility, should the city decide to proceed with either of those. Again, planning level estimates to try to figure out, what those kinds of investments would be on the overall system. And then below that, we looked at a number of different C-level stops, again, trying to develop some parameters for the kinds of investments we would need at those bus stops. And this is an example. This was actually on the Fargo side, but this gives you an example of, we put some of these stops in the context of real space so people could understand what those improvements would look at. The Ground Transportation Center is the centrifuge of the overall MapBus system. We looked at that in particular. It's nearly 40 years old. Of course, it's owned by the city of Fargo, but 2/3 of the Moorhead portion of the MapBus system transfers at that facility every 30 minutes. So Moorhead does have an interest in what happens there. So we did look at a number of options for trying to better utilize the space there at the Ground Transportation Center. We did find some solutions that would continue to maximize that facility, at least in the midterm. We developed some renderings for what a renovation there may look like, retaining the core of the facility, but again doing some different exterior improvements, how the buses use that surface deck with safety as our overall focus. We identified a $2.5 million renovation that the city of Fargo is actually proceeding with. They have the federal and local dollars to move forward with that. Of course, that's solely the city of Fargo's responsibility to pay for those improvements. They own that building, but there are some operational indirect costs that Moorhead does pay for the operation of that overall facility. So we did identify some solutions at the Ground Transportation Transportation Center. The other piece that Moorhead does have a direct financial investment in is the Metro Transit Garage. This facility is only 12 or 13 years old and is nearing capacity. And of course, it's situated up within kind of that emerging public works campus that the city of Fargo has on the north end of town. So we looked at a number of different options to try to utilize that existing infrastructure up there, really premise it on the fact that, in the next 5 to 10 years, a number of key components of that facility are going to reach capacity, a number of probably already at capacity when you look at where we're at in terms of fleet services, in terms of storage, in terms of parking. So we really are in kind of a dire situation of trying to expand that facility. We developed 3 different options to try to reuse that footprint up there as best we could. This shows you option 1, which was really the most feasible option that we looked at. Really what that would do is add an additional new area for bus maintenance to the south. I'm sorry, that wouldn't be the south. North is to the right on the screen. So to the east side of the building there, that orange area would be a new sort of a fleet maintenance area that would allow us to renovate the existing fleet maintenance area, provide more storage. The nice thing about this option is it allowed us to phase it in. We realized that if we built all of option 1 immediately, a number of areas would be over capacity. However, if we phased it in both probably a 5 and a 20-year phase, we'd be able to meet some of those immediate needs while forestalling some of those longer range needs, which aren't necessarily needed right now. So we did develop an implementation. This shows you what phase 1 would be. That orange area would be the new sort of fleet maintenance facility that we would pull out, build that as a standalone, then we'd be able to renovate the existing facility to meet projected and existing needs. And then, of course, phase 2, you would fill it in. So you can see the standalone would be the orange piece, and then in time, as you would need to fill it in, you could do that accordingly. So we developed an implementation piece, so probably in the next 5 to 8 years needing to move forward with that phase 1 component. I can't read the screen from here. So basically the first phase of that would probably be about $6.25 million, and of course Moorhead is responsible for about a third of that, a lot of that coming from MnDOT and federal sources. So that is it in a nutshell. This is some of the renderings we did for the Metro Transit Garage just to look at how it would fit on that site. But again, I think that the takeaway here is it's a long-range planning tool. With the state and the federal grants that Transit Lori has to work with, it's paramount that these kinds of studies are conducted because dollars become available, and Lori and Metro Transit need to have shovel-ready projects. She needs to go to the state of Minnesota with something on paper that says we know where those funds, how those funds are going to be spent, so that's why these kinds of documents are important. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein, for your presentation. Does council have any questions for Mr. Klein? Okay, seeing none, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, now you have a resolution in your packet. It is not to say we support or you don't support the report. It is just that you've received the report. That's an important distinction in this situation. So then you'll want to go to B and get a vote on the resolution then.
So do we need to make a motion? Okay.
Move for approval.
Okay. Motion made by Councilmember Hendrickson to approve the resolution, seconded by Councilperson Watson Curry. All in support, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion approved, carries. Then number 6 on the agenda is to approve the minutes from January 14th, 2019.
I move to approve. Second.
Motion made by Councilmember White to approve the minutes, seconded by, Councilmember Carlson. All in support, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Citizens to address the council, number 7. Any citizens present? move to public hearing.
Number 9.
Is there a motion to approve? The title of the public hearing, is there's a public hearing regarding the request of Michael Clint for a property tax exemption for a multifamily residential project located at 2622 Country Club Parkway. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion to open the public hearing made by Councilmember Carlson, seconded by Councilmember Watson Curry. All in support, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We're now in public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Pretty straightforward study tonight here. This is a property tax exemption. This falls under our multifamily housing residential incentive, which basically is put in place to handle some of the disparities between the state of Minnesota and North Dakota with some of our building code differences, and in particular some of the air circulation requirements that the state of Minnesota requires as a part of our local building code efforts. So this was really established to kind of break down that disparity. What's being presented here is a 8-unit apartment building at 2622 Country Club Parkway. Michael Clint is here if you have any questions for the owner. And what it is a 2-year property tax exemption. It's based on current tax rates, so the total exemption equates to about $6,400. So not a large number here by any means, but again made in place to handle some of that disparity. Be happy to answer any questions, but again, pretty straightforward. We see these come through, and if you have any questions for the owner, he is here as well.
Thank you, Mr. LaPointe. Council, have any questions for Mr. LaPointe or Mr. Clint?
Derek, I have one question. Just talk a little bit about the other buildings that are in the vicinity of that.
Yeah, I'll try to explain as best I can. If you'll see in your packet, there'll be a general location map as I'm holding up right here. This will kind of give you a little bit of a justification, but you obviously have the golf course to the east, Country Club Parkways directly to the west. We have some units, the multifamily units directly to the south. There's actually some garages in that area, so this does fit the grouping of development in there. We do have some single family across the way to the west, but again, with the zoning and the type of development that you see on this side, it does fit.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. LaPointe? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Volkers, then there's a resolution, much like the last one, so we'll need to have a motion to support the resolution. Is there a motion on the table? We have to close the public hearing?
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gertz. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing made by Councilmember Gertz, seconded by Councilmember.
Chuck beat me.
Okay.
Hendricks.
Oh, Deb can
Councilmember
have it if she
Hendricks.
wants.
You can, no.
I'm on chair.
All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, there's a vote on the resolution. Is there a motion on the table?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to support the resolution noted by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Carlson. All in support of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I think we're at number 14. This is a resolution to approve the transfer of monies from DWI seizure funds to the Every 15-Minute program. And Chief Shannon Monroe.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The city manager asked me to provide you with a little more information or background on this. So I appreciate your time, and I'll try and make this as brief as possible, but I wanted to give you just a few pieces of information about what the program's about, and then play the video that is put together for this program, because I think it really helps put the whole picture together then. But first, I just want to say I'm extremely proud of my staff that puts this together every 2 years for the junior and senior classes at Moorhead High. They care a lot about their community, and they're able to do some amazing work because of the support they get from the school district and from the city in putting this together. The presentation I have here in the video, I know some of you work in education, so I want to cite where this is coming from. Sergeant Scott Kostoritz is the one who put this presentation together, so I don't want to represent it as my work. He put a lot of time and effort into this. So anyway, just briefly about the program, every 15 minutes. The name comes from, at the time when this was first being developed in Pennsylvania, there was an alcohol-related crash every 15 minutes that resulted in the death of a person. So that's where the title came from. And as a result of where things have gotten today, that is now stretched out to about every 33 minutes, so it's improving. This picture you see on the screen here, that is all makeup. This was part of our acting that we do as a part of this program. But on the next slide, the every 15 minutes program is a 2-day, 4-part program that is a simulated alcohol-related crash and death of a student. And it can be very traumatic, but the idea is through the simulation is that it helps show students that the result of one bad decision carries a lot further than what they would think. So we're hoping that it helps them make good decisions in the future. This started in 2011. And it's conducted, as I said, every 2 years because it's for the junior and senior classes. And for this year, this would be our 5th session of presenting it to our students here. The reason why this has worked out so well here in Moorhead is because of the support that we've had, not only from the city and the department, but also the school district, and the students and parents that are involved. Each session that we do has roughly about 60 key people that are involved in the process from start to finish. So those 4 parts, what are they made of? The Living Dead is part 1. Part 2 is a mock crash. Part 3 is a retreat. And then it continues into the morning of day 2 where we have a memorial service. In planning, we establish a timeline kind of working backwards based on where prom and graduation is at, because obviously we want to present this program right before those key things that are going to be going on in the school at the end of the year. So a select group of about 15 to 30 students is selected as our core group that we're working with, and they're based on nominations from school and peer leaders. And they will start meeting in November to plan the session that will be coming up typically in about April or May in that time period. We'll also start meeting with the parents of those students and working on the planning. And for tonight, for funding, which is what's on the agenda here for tonight, it's about $4,000 per session. And each year that we've put this on, we usually get a $750 grant from AAA of North Dakota, who's been a very good partner of ours in this. And then the remainder comes out of our DWI seizure fund, which is allowable under statute for doing prevention programs. This is a video. I'm not going to have this video played, but the only reason I wanted to show that is this is a picture of when students are selected out of the class, and we have somebody that is dressed up like this and comes in and selects the kids that are participating to come out of the class. You can move to the next one. So part 1, which I said was the Living Dead, it starts with an announcement by the school administration in the morning as to what's going to be taking place during the day. Roughly every 15 minutes, the Grim Reaper and a police officer will enter the different classrooms and select the student that is participating in this exercise, and then the officer reads the student's obituary that was written by the parents, which I'll tell you, I've had kids involved in it myself. It's extremely difficult to do, even though you know it's a mock or fake scenario. And then that student is removed from the classroom. We have them give up their cell phone, which they won't have any contact with family or friends, to kind of just another way to send that message that this person would no longer be in contact with anybody if they weren't here. They're brought to a room where they are given makeup to look like they are the living dead, I guess would be the best way to describe that. And then during class breaks, they stand in the hallways and they're holding their obituaries so the other students can see them and read the obituaries. The juniors and seniors are then brought out typically to the football field where we have a mock crash as part two, where we have two vehicles that are heavily damaged that look like they've actually been involved in a motor vehicle collision. And there's a very strict scripted storyline, and everything is broadcast over the PA system at the football field to include a 911 call, the emergency services response, radio traffic. There's simulated CPR on the scene. Sanford's AirMed will fly in and fly one of the students away from the crash site. And then there's the standardized field sobriety testing that is done with the driver at the scene. The student that is simulated to have been deceased at the scene is then removed by a hearse that Wright Funeral Home provides, just to help again drive home that realism for the student as to what's taking place there. So the next part is the retreat. Those students that were involved in, those 15 to 30, are brought to an area hotel where a counselor is brought in from the school and they discuss why it is that we're doing this exercise. And then another difficult part takes place where the students have to sit down and write a letter to their parents saying, "Dear Mom and Dad, I died in an alcohol-related crash. I never got to tell you, ... So again, can be a very emotional time for the student. And at the same time, the parents are doing the same for their child while they're at home that evening. So the very first thing the next morning is the parents and students are brought together privately and they're able to exchange the letters. And then there's usually some volunteers that will read them at the next part, which is the part 4, the memorial service we call it, which is the final part of the program where all of the juniors and seniors are brought into the auditorium. And it usually starts off with our video that's been produced by students in the film class at Minnesota State University Moorhead. And because that filming was occurring on the day prior to this, these students are literally working on this until 6 o'clock in the morning, and this is an 8 o'clock in the morning presentation, and they do a fantastic job, which you're about to see here. But the video is to kind of show what led up to the crash, what happened during the crash, and what happens after the crash. And then those letters between parents and children for those who volunteer will be read aloud. And then we have a very impactful guest speaker that comes in and does a presentation. And we've had anyone from someone who's been the drunk driver in an alcohol-related death, or people who have been survivors of a crash that talk about what their experiences were. So this is the part that brings it all together now, I hope, for you, is the video.
Dang. Do a spin. No, nice.
Then you gotta be behind. Yeah. I was gonna say. I get it. It's pretty good.
I didn't really like it.
Why not? Oh. It was too long?
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. Oh my god, look at Brennan's story, guys. Whose house are they at? I have no idea. How many people? Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, he looks so drunk. Actually, like, he has like 5 on there.
Shocking.
Brennan, are you ready for prom?
Yeah.
Woo! Brennan, watch the road!
No way, I am fine, and we can make it here safe.
Brennan, watch out!
911, what's the address for your emergency?
There's been a crash. I don't know what's going on. The girl, I don't see the police in and out, but she's got a car.
What's the address?
50th Avenue South, Riverhaven Road.
50th Avenue South and Riverhaven Road?
Yeah.
And tell me again exactly what happened?
She's in a crash.
Was it 2 vehicles?
Two vehicles.
And what did you say her injuries were?
I don't know. She's just bleeding, stomach down. She's just knocked out.
So there's 2 unconscious?
Yeah, this is 50th Avenue South, Riverhaven Road.
Okay, 50th Avenue, 50 Avenue South and Riverhaven Road in Moorhead?
Yep, Moorhead.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to have my partner start some help.
Okay.
We've got some help on the way down there. Are you with any of the patients right now?
I'm missing another car in the back. There's another one that's screaming in my car. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we've got help on the way, but I've got some questions for the responders, okay?
Okay.
Are you with them now?
Yes.
And you said there's
There's
people,
something
correct?
back. There's back. Yeah.
Look 319 and 325. Respond to an injury accident. There's 2 vehicles involved, possibly 7 patients at this time. One that was ejected.
319, code 3.
Go ahead. 10-4, 6754 and rescue 222 copy. We have 2 unresponsive, 1 with no pulse. 6754 copy. Can you send a second truck, please? 10-4.
I can dispatch another fire unit.
10-4, 1425.
We're 1 code 100.
10-4, 1 code 100, 1425.
48 Central.
6748.
Will you let Stanford know that we're going to have 2 trauma alerts?
10-4, 1429.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
10-15, 1 belt male. Your hand run.
10-4, 1435. Rescue 2.
What's going on here? This doesn't look very good.
That looks like Brenna's car.
No.
Yeah.
How can you tell from here?
Well, it's the same type of car.
They got the roof cut off of it.
Wait. That is Brenna's car. That is. Stop! 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 That's Brenna's car! Stop!
officers are handling that. Paige, are you allergic to anything?
No.
Do you take any medications?
No.
Do you have any medical problems, Paige?
No, I don't.
Not wearing a seatbelt is alcohol involved. A little bit of abrasion on that left arm. Does have that head limit for your left eye. No other injuries. No good CMS types of work.
Sense of head injuries. We'll have to get a CT scan and see what's going on there.
Mr. Meyer, you have been charged with criminal vehicular homicide, criminal vehicular injury, DWI, texting while driving, and no seatbelt. Mr. Meyer, is there anything you'd like to say before I set your bail today?
As you can see, it was a very real situation, and for the parents and those kids involved, it is very impactful. This slide here is just quickly the long list of how many different organizations help us out with putting this entire package together. And then the last slide is that since we started doing this in 2011, we've reached over 5,000 students. We've had no known alcohol-related crash fatalities through our Moorhead School District. And then just two items of note. As of today is day one that Zach Groover joined our police department. He was in one of the past videos, and he's the second kid from these videos that we've hired that are now police officers with us. Mm-hmm. So any questions for me?
Well, Councilmember Gertz, sorry.
Thank you, Shannon, for the work that you do on this program. It's, I think as a parent, I don't think anybody wants to go through that. And like you said, the students did a fabulous job of putting that together, and I have a hard time believing anybody watching that video wouldn't have a solid impact on them. So thank you for your work on that.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Hendrickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shannon, do you know how many hours were volunteer on that? Looked like there's a lot of volunteer hours on that.
I don't have a tally on that, but there is a lot of people putting a lot of time in. But you know, I did have the amount that there was 60 different people that really have to put a lot of work and effort into this directly to make it happen.
Okay, yeah, and the video is very impactful, and I'm glad we haven't had any fatalities with alcohol related, especially after prom and homecoming. So, great job, and it was a great film. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shelley Carlson.
Having a child that has gone through this, and I know that you have too, I know that it's very impactful on the students too, and I appreciate the fact that you are very intentional about when the program is offered around that prom and graduation time, because I think that that goes a lot to preventing these types of occurrences in the city of Moorhead. So thank you, and all the other groups that work with you.
Thank you.
Councilmember White.
I just want to echo my colleagues and thank you. As someone who was directly affected by a drunk driving fatality, I just am thankful for everything that you're doing to try to prevent this from happening in our community, because it's something that it changes the lives of all of us, and the families of the victims as well as the families of the people who commit these acts. And the more we can do to educate and particularly work with our kids, it's just so valuable. Thanks.
Yes, I agree. I think prevention is better than anything else that we would go through, and we're not always there just to enforce. This is a good program to hopefully cause this kind of thing to not occur, so nobody has to go through with it. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Chief Monroe? Councilmember Gertz.
Is Moorhead the only community, or does Fargo and West Fargo do a similar program?
That's a very good question. We started this here in 2011, and we were, I think, the second or the third in the state of Minnesota, and there's nobody else in this area that's doing this program. When Sergeant Castoris went for the training, we had to fly him to San Francisco to locate the training. That was as close as we could find in the time frame we wanted. So there was nobody else in the region here that's putting on this program, and it's been a very positive thing for our whole community, our whole region here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank your department and all the entities for being involved. I remember a few years ago, I was one of the actors as a prosecutor, and though a minimal role, you felt the powerful nature of what you were doing. So keep up the good work, and I just watching the video tonight, for those that are watching at home, and it makes a statement.
Thank you, Mayor.
So thank you. Is there a motion on the table to approve the resolution?
Okay.
Motion to approve the resolution has been made by Councilmember Watson Curry, seconded by Councilmember Paulson. All in favor of supporting the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, was that for both resolutions?
Right.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Thank you for that point of clarification.
All
So there's a motion to approve the resolution, meaning number 15, correct?
And 14.
14 and 15. Okay, because we passed, I thought, one, so now we're doing both? Okay. Okay, thank you, and I apologize for my confusion. So there's a motion to approve number 15, the resolution to accept the grant monies funded by the AAA program. So that's been made by Councilmember Watson Curry.
I'll second that.
Am I backwards on that?
No.
Okay, and second by Councilmember Paulson. All in support, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. My apologies on that again. Then we're down to number 20, I believe, the resolution to approve the service agreement with the Village Business Institute for Employee Assistance Program. And it's Ms. Wengler.
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The city manager wanted me to give a brief overview of this resolution and the important service that this provides to our employees, including you. The city has had a partnership with the Village Business Institute since 2010. We've had an employee assistance program, though, for over 28 years at the city of Moorhead. The employee assistance program is a service that assists both employees and our family members, and it serves full-time, part-time, council members, temporary seasonal employees, everyone who is considered an employee of the city can utilize these services. Some of the services that are outlined in the council communication before you are that each covered employee can receive a total of 4 sessions per each household family member. So, for example, a family of 4 could receive 16 sessions free of charge at the employee assistance program. It could be for personal counseling services. It could be for financial counseling, crisis counseling. Any number of the services that they provide can be accessed by those family members. Each family member, like those 16 sessions that you heard me state, can be used by one member of the family for all 16 sessions, or each family member could utilize 4. So you can see they can be used in various ways depending on the needs of the family. Other services that the Employee Assistance Program provides is a formal referral process for job performance issues or violations of Department of Transportation regulations for drug-free workplace. There are also on-site employee trainings for employees or supervisory-specific training, monthly employee newsletters. There are quarterly supervisor newsletters, and employees can access these services up to 90 days after ending employment with the city. The last thing is just to highlight that the total service contract includes both City of Moorhead full-time, part-time, temp, and seasonal employees, but this contract is inclusive of also all Moorhead Public Service employees and all Moorhead Public Housing employees. We hold the main contract, and then the services though it's based on a full-time equivalency count or number of employees. So Moorhead Public Service and Moorhead Public Housing reimburse the City of Moorhead for those FTE counts that are attributed to them. The total cost for the City of Moorhead is $9,360 for year 2019. We do a FTE count annually, and that helps to confirm and calculate costs for 2020 and 2021. The service agreement before you is a 3-year service agreement. In closing, I'll just say that employee assistance programs provide a number of beneficial services to the City of Moorhead employees. We receive a lot of positive comments about the Village Business Institute and what they do and how they help employees, including improved health, improved productivity, improved life satisfaction, and decreased absenteeism at work. And with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Wingler?
Thank you, Jill, for that update. For the benefit of the council and those listening, this is, as Jill mentioned, a resource for all of our employees in addition to the council members at Moorhead Public Service and Public Housing. And we do encourage our employees to use it. They can go and speak to somebody about whatever they need, free to begin with. And then we do offer some trainings as a result of this, as Jill mentioned. So it's a great service, great opportunity that's available to all city employees. So we want to we as management continue to encourage employees to utilize their services. They have anything from financial planning to, there's a lot of opportunity, to dealing with the teenager, for example. So they have a lot of opportunities for us. So I encourage you and our city employees to use it. It's a great opportunity. And thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Ms. Folkers. Thank you, Ms. Wingler. Any other comments?
I'll just say one thing.
Councilmember Carlson.
I think it's really important and imperative that the city has this benefit to its employees due to the fact that there is a lot of conversation around mental health and mental health wellness. And so I really hope and strongly encourage the employees to utilize this great service.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wingler. I'm sorry, Winger. I've known her for a few years, and I can't believe I mispronounced her last name multiple times. My apologies, Jill. So sitting before, is there a motion to approve the resolution? Second. Motion to approve the resolution to approve the service agreement with the Village Business Institute for Employee Assistance Program, made by Councilmember Carlson, seconded by Councilmember Hendrickson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now down to number 22, Mayor and Council reports. And I think, Ms. Volkers, you wanted to have.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm going to hand it over to Lucas. Lucas is going to talk about the formal approval needed on my employment contract.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. For those of you who don't know, my name is Lucas Croker. I am the Assistant City Attorney. I work with John at Onstead Twitchell Law Firm. The item that I have is to discuss an amendment to City Manager Volker's employment contract. John informed me that he provided you all with the second amendment to the employment agreement. Is that correct? So the main changes that are involved in that agreement is an increase of City Manager Volker's salary to $164,000. And then to add, increase life insurance to $100,000. I believe it was at $50,000 before. It'll now be at $100,000. And then the third thing is to include long-term disability insurance into the agreement. This will be maximum coverage or up to 60% of the employee's monthly income, whichever is lower. So if you have any questions on that document, I should be able to help you out. In it, Section 5 is the one that discusses salary. And then Section 11 is life insurance, and Section 12 is the long-term disability. And so those are the three main changes.
And I apologize. I didn't get your last name, Lucas.
Croker.
Croker. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from Mr. Croker regarding the amendments? Okay. So then, Councilmember Gertz, sorry.
I move approval of the amendment.
Motion made to approve the amendments by Councilmember Gertz, seconded by Councilmember Watson-Curry. All in favor of the approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Croker, for that. Any council reports? Councilmember Watson-Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I had 3 meetings that I attended since our last city council meeting. Just wanted to make you aware of. The 16th, Councilmember White is now appointed to the Human Rights Commission, but had a previous conflict, so I did attend. And they approved the annual work plan for 2019. And heads up, they'll be electing the chair and vice chair at the February meeting. On the 22nd, I attended my first Arts and Culture Commission. They reviewed but did not alter their bylaws, elected officers, and designated representatives. So our new chair and co-chair are Kenyon Williams and Sue Leggett. The appointments we had were for the ART, the Art Review team, and that's Sue Leggett and Tim Wollenseen. And over the appointee for the community fund, so our new foundation fund is Carrie Winterstein, who was the former chair. And there was some conversation, too, as far as increasing our media reach about the call for art. In that foundation fund, there's been some anonymous money donated for 5656 Proud, Moorhead Proud artwork, and I would encourage folks to share that within their networks. And it's a pretty unique opportunity for a call for art. It's not just a sculpture or some sort of static. It can be a poem, a play, and an event. So it's kind of a unique opportunity in that world. And then the other meeting I attended with Councilmember Hendrickson was the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and that was last Thursday. We talked about down the road looking at potential increases in the tipping fee and what that could look like. So we'll hope to be more involved in those conversations. We also learned that language for our much-needed transfer station have been introduced in the House and Senate, so you can follow House File 177 or Senate File 206. We were updated on the landfill. Right now there's a new cell that's under construction and a cell that will be closed off, and they'll be adding some things to drain gas and maintain other fluids within that facility. And we also had a presentation from the plastic bag task force. They are doing a plastic bag challenge. It's gotten some media coverage, so perhaps you've seen it. They're working with fifth graders in the metro area to do a collection and identify that you can recycle those items, but they do need to be single source recycled, so please do not put your plastic bags in your blue bin. And then just the last thing I wanted to share, I serve on the Food Commission, and they have an upcoming event. They do an event called First Fridays at B, which is normally at Theater B. This is their on-the-road edition. So they're going to be at Dakota Medical Foundation the first Friday of the month. So that's this Friday, February 1st, at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is their program, and they're talking about the food worker shortage. So they're always looking at things through the lens of food, and of course that work force is a real popular topic for us to be considering. That's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson Curry, for sharing your report. I do have a question. What is a tipping fee?
Chuck, you want to take this one?
Because you knew that was going to.
It's just a fee that you for delivering garbage and putting it in the landfill.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So when we're dropping a semi or a truckload, we pay for by tonnage, basically.
Okay.
And I asked during the SWAC meeting if we're comparable to other counties in the state, and we are actually a little bit on the cheaper end. So, thanks.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other council members want to provide any reports? Council member, flip a coin, or who's going to go first?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Seniority, Council member Gertz. And I mean that with the utmost respect.
Thank you. Just a report on, I attended the Moorhead Public Service meeting, and two things. There's some continued meetings with West Central Communities Action on some of the policies and procedures that Moorhead Public Services has for when bills aren't paid in a timely fashion. I think they're working towards a positive resolution there. And then they noted that Moorhead Public Service had submitted some information on land, purchasing land, and I think that John Shockley was getting an opinion from the State Attorney General on that, and then that should be forthcoming to the council. Okay. Any questions on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Council member Gertz. Council member White.
Thank you, Mayor Judd. As you heard, I'm on the Human Rights Commission, and I haven't had a chance to attend a meeting, but I did start to work on an issue that came up in the media. So many of you may have seen that there was a media report of an alleged incident of housing discrimination based on race. And so I wanted to share that after seeing this in the news, I did contact the city manager and our mayor, and just to learn, first of all, what the role of the city is, and then with after talking to them, also reached out to the person who came forward with this incident. And I understand from what I've learned is that we as a city don't play a role in terms of regulating or investigating things like that. However, our city staff was very helpful in terms of, first of all, organizing some different resources that we could share with the person who came forward so that she knew more fully some of the resources that she had at the state and regional level where she could turn to. And I also just thought that it created this opportunity for a conversation, and so I would like to ask the city manager to add that to the agenda to the Human Rights Commission so that they can have a conversation about ways that we could, to me it's an opportunity for us to reiterate our commitment to being an inclusive community. And so looking for opportunities for educating citizens who may experience something like this so that they know what their resources, what their rights are, educating our landlords so that they know, how they can learn to maintain compliance with state and federal policies, and perhaps making a statement. So again, really living up to the commitment that we've made to being an inclusive community. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember White, and thank you for reaching out to that citizen as well. I mean, that's really important. I think that we, at least give some sort of affirmation that whatever has taken place is not tolerated. Councilmember Carlson.
Just a quick report on the library committee. Probably the biggest takeaway is that on Wednesday, February 13th, they are having an open house from 5 to 6 p.m. and everyone is invited, particularly members of the City Council and our mayor are invited to at least come and get their picture taken with your favorite book, and that picture of you holding your favorite book will be turned into a Celebrities Read poster that they will be displaying at the Moorhead Public Library. And if you would like to purchase a I Love My Moorhead Library t-shirt to wear while you're posing with your favorite book to go on your Celebrity Read poster, those are available for purchase at the Moorhead Library also.
So, Councilmember Carlson, I have a question regarding the t-shirts.
4 different colors.
That's fine, but what are the size options? Was my question.
I don't know, Mr. Mayor.
Well, if I think I'm willing to, do my, thing, if you will. But unless I have a T-shirt that fits me, that might be a little.
Mr. Mayor, I do know that when I purchased mine, that there was 2 very large drawers full of various sizes T-shirts. So I would imagine that they would have multiple sizes for many different individuals. Yes.
Okay, well, I will be there. I will be there.
I just want to know if we're going to have a contest for best T-shirt. And
I might lose that one. Any other reports? Councilmember Paulson.
I'll do an update on the diversion authority. So after this meeting, I'm going to attend the Buffalo Red Watershed District meeting where Clay County is reaching out to the watershed to find 2 positions on a Minnesota-based property negotiation team. And the team will be made up of 2 members from Clay County, 2 members from the city of Moorhead, 3 members from the city of Moorhead, and hopefully 2 members from the Buffalo Red Watershed District. So I can report back at the next meeting whether they will accept the offer to engage on the project or not. And that's kind of where we're at. So.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Any other reports? I'll briefly just state that I was in attendance with a few others at the intergovernmental retreat, which I thought was amazing, and I think it really speaks volumes that we voted on the Village EAP program, showing our commitment to our staff as well regarding the issues that we're faced with in our region and in our city regarding mental health. I think it was a really powerful presentation on behalf of Ms. Simonich regarding child adverse experiences. I think it was something that still needs to be talked about, and we may need to continue that conversation in the future. So I thought that was really informative. Also, I had the opportunity to speak at the Home Builders Association City Night, and a few of you were in attendance as well. I thought it went very well. It was good to hear the questions from the developers regarding what we're doing over here in the city of Moorhead. I think we have a lot of good, our staff is working very well with the developers, making sure that we're moving on with our growth. And I think a lot of that speaks to the leadership of our city manager and also in conjunction with her staff. So keep up the great work. Also, just looking through my calendar here, because there was a lot going on. Their graduation was a success. Kudos to the Moorhead Police Department. I want to send a special shout out to Officer Ethan Meehan, who has done a great job at Horizon Middle School educating our youth about the ADARE program. Also, another special shout out to him for getting on skates last night and skating at the Cops versus Kids game. He's much better than I am. I would never have got out there and skated with the kids. It was a great, riveting game. Also met with the Chamber President, Craig Whitney. Also as well, there may be some conversations we'll have to have as a council. We'll talk to City Manager Volkers regarding a project in which they would want us to consider regarding future for our region and our city. It's entitled Fueling Our Future, and we'll be having some more conversation about that as we move forward. Those are the highlights that I want to bring to the table. Anyone have any questions for me, I'll answer them. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Mr. Mayor, I think I did see a Judd on the ice last night, though. Was that correct?
Yeah, I always caution that individual on the ice that he should never wear double zeros on his jersey, especially when he's playing goalie.
Well, I'd like to note our chief performed admirably on skates, so I was impressed. Yeah.
He did, and he also had 2 penalties.
Yes.
Yes.
Very well.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, his penalties were for tripping himself and speeding and putting a child in danger.
Correct.
And another one of our lieutenants was penalized or got a penalty because I was there doing the penalty box. And Lieutenant Croney was in for robbery.
Fitting. And I will let the public know, as well as everyone else, this is a fundraiser for the Moorhead PALS program, a Police Activities League, which is going to be a organization that's going to connect police officers with our disadvantaged youth in the community, building and strengthening those relationships. So that's going to be very, very critical as we try to get involved in youth early on, so we do not fill our juvenile detention center. Also to the Moorhead Police Explorers program as well, who we're trying to grow our own, making sure that people who are interested in law enforcement stay in our community and become law enforcement officers. So it's a great investment, and the game was well attended. So thank you for all those who donated and supported both of those programs. Madam City Manager Volkers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council members. Those reports were great, and that does keep everybody informed on what's going on, so thank you for doing those. I have 3 things quick. First, on the dais, you each had a packet for the legislative, with legislative information. 4 of you, are going down to St. Paul on Wednesday, the legislative work group, and we will be lobbying with our legislators and others and talking. The governor will be speaking at lunch. We will be joining him at lunch, and then we have a dinner with all the legislature. We're invited to that, so that's a great thing in Greater Minnesota, and that's a great thing, and thank you for participating. You have information. Those of you who are not on the legislative work group, it's just information for you, and if you see anything, you have questions, you've got your legislative work group, or I can try to answer anything you have. So, and we're driving to St. Paul in the freezing cold on Wednesday, so hopefully everybody will be safe. The second thing I have got is also on the dais, I gave you an update as our Public Works Director calls us sit rep. We're starting to talk military speak. I'm getting better at it at 0700 XYZ about the snow, ice, and the weather. And I thought Public Works did a fabulous job between yesterday and today on the roads. And that report, has color coded where all the trucks were, what they did, if they did primary streets, secondary streets, etc. I thought they did a great job. We've been receiving some customer compliments today. And I haven't seen any complaints, and there's always one or two, and today I didn't see any, so that's great. So I don't know if you're getting feedback, but they do a great job, so I wanted to point that out. The last thing is occasionally we will be recognized for our excellence in financial reporting, and we did receive an award, and I haven't even told our finance director yet. We received this award, and I wanted to present it here, and then I will present it to the finance directors. We have two right now. The certificate, this is by the Government Finance Officers Association, and it is the highest award. It's called the Certificate of Excellence for Achievement of Excellence for our financial reporting and our financial monitoring, and so we received this award. We have this little certificate. We get this little pin that we'll put up, or this little thing when we do receive it. So it's the highest form of recognition in government that we can get, and so we did receive it for 2017. In addition, our finance director, who is retiring at the end of March, received an award of financial reporting achievement, and this can only be achieved if we get the top award, which we got. So I will be presenting it to her, and our new finance director, Carla McCall, is in the audience, and I'm sure she will keep this running, right? She'll do great. So anyway, we do a great job on our financial management reporting, and it is the highest honor we can achieve. So good for Moorhead. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Well, again, it's a testament to what you're doing, so thank you also. And no pressure.
Yeah, right. Poor Carla. Yeah, no pressure.
All right. Councilmember Paulson.
Well, I see we have this Highway 10 75 corridor study public meeting, but I thought I saw it was canceled.
Yep, to be rescheduled.
I think we should make that announcement tonight, just in case anybody watching was planning on going. That would have been on Wednesday night, so it will be rescheduled.
Due to weather.
Due to weather, yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you for that reference, Councilmember Paulson. And now, is that your report, Madam?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and if you want.
Okay, yes. And so now we're looking at an executive closed session where we'll need to take some action. Is there a motion on the table to go into executive session?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may just add to your request there, we'll be looking for a motion to go into an executive or closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3 to discuss the possible sale of real estate identified as part of Clay County parcel number 58.999.0018. The reason I read that all out is under the statute you have to say what the parcel is before you go into executive session.
Thank you very much, and I do not want to violate any legal
No,
issues,
absolutely not.
especially me being licensed. So is there a motion pursuant to what Mr. Crocker has stated?
Second.
Okay. A motion has been made. I'm sorry, Councilmember Gertz.
I just want to declare I have a potential conflict of interest, so I will not be attending the executive session.
Thank you, Councilmember Gertz. So noted. Motion made by Councilmember Watson Curry and seconded by Councilmember Paulson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, for clarification, we will not be taking any action today. This is an information system. The public who are waiting, there will not be any action following.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor has to come back and close.
Thank you. We on the air? Recorded?
I think you can.
Okay. All right. And if we do have a quorum? No? Okay. We've ended executive session. Now we would like to adjourn. Is there a motion on the table?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn has been moved by Councilmember Curry, seconded by Councilmember Carlson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
You said aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good evening, Moorhead.